Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice.
Hello, ambitious dentist. Today, I have a fantastic interview with Samantha Leonard, co-founder of Stream Dental, which provides services to help dentists solve the age-old problem of HR. For most dentists, HR remains an unsolved mystery, and if we're being honest, it's very often an afterthought in the endless list of to-dos throughout your day. And, despite being so important, even just defining HR in a simple way can be a struggle for many dentists. And it's no secret, human resources is important, and how you interact, communicate, and motivate your staff has a huge impact on the success of your practice, which is why I'm so excited to have Samantha Leonard on the show. In our conversation, she breaks down why HR is so important and how to start taking it seriously inside of your practice. So here's a few things you'll learn on today's show: how to find your dream team and retain top talent, why processes are so important when it comes to HR and how to implement them the right way, the many misconceptions of HR and how Samantha defines human resources, mistakes many dental practices make with onboarding new employees that can cost you thousands of dollars, and much, much more. So with human resources being such a complex process, I know you'll get a lot out of today's conversation. And now, here's my interview with Samantha Leonard.
Hello, ambitious dentist. Today, I have with us someone who knows a lot about an area of business that, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about. I love to bring people onto the podcast that fit that bill for me, because I want to learn just as much as I want you guys to learn from this podcast episode. And today, we're going to be talking about human resources. Now, human resources is a very important piece of the business world. Something that a lot of us don't know a whole lot about. Certain states have different laws, different areas of different laws, probably even counties have different laws, it would seem like. And it's really hard to find good guidance on this. And so today's guest is Samantha Leonard with Stream Dental. Now, Stream Dental is a virtual HR solutions company that helps people with their HR problems. Now, they are based out of Canada, but they are entering into the U.S. market even as we speak. And so, Samantha, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm really excited about the episode.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, so let's just kind of just jump into this. So tell us your background. Tell us about Stream Dental and how in the world an HR company for dentists gets created. Because I get asked all the time, how did you get into to become a dental CPA? So I have the same question for you. How did you become a dental HR specialist?
Okay, well, we'll have to rewind that story. And it all starts about 10 years ago when I actually I graduated from school and I started my career off in dentistry as a dental assistant. So I worked as a dental assistant for 5 years. I loved it, but just kind of felt that it was time for me to transition and take on that next step, that next challenge. So I actually kind of transitioned to do more of the front end of the office and learn the business side of dentistry, which is completely different because I know the clinic inside and out, but the actual business side was completely foreign to me. So thankfully, I got hired by an amazing dentist who's my mentor and now Stream Dental's co-founder. But I started working with Dr. Sam Dar. He hired me to start his first ever satellite-only practice that does Invisalign, Invisalign only practice. And so he hired me. I was the only employee. I was doing clinical, I was doing the front end, I was doing accounting, I was doing marketing. So you could say that I was basically thrown into the deep end of actually starting a practice from scratch. So long story short, that practice is now a multi-million-dollar clinic. He then went on to expand and acquired and other practices. So now he has a total of 6 offices across Canada, and I was a part of building that empire. So needless to say, I learned a lot. But during that process, I really noticed, when it came time when it was our turn to find our dream team, hire a new employee, or maybe if I had questions about, team conflict or how to resolve something, or any questions about employment standards and legislations, there was nowhere for me to turn to. And that baffled me, because when you think of our industry, we pride ourselves in the advancement of software and technology, but then there wasn't a go-to person or a go-to resource for that human resources itself. So then we decided it was time to change that. So that's when Dr. Dar and I partnered together, and we created Stream Dental Staffing Solutions to be able to help offices with that age-old challenge of human resources. So whether it's finding the best talent for your practice, or putting together an HR strategic plan, developing employment contracts, what have you, we're there. So in that way, it can simplify, it can take that pressure off of their shoulders and allow dentists to really do what they do best, which is, giving their patients the smile of their dreams. So long story short, that's how Stream Dental really came about.
Very cool. So define for us what human resources really is, because if you ask a fuddy-dud like me, I'm probably going to say it's making sure your paperwork is in order when you hire or fire someone. Is there, I'm assuming there's a lot more to it.
Definitely. That is a really big component. And a lot of times people just think that human resources is just hiring and firing. And that is just one part of it. But there are so many things in between that is really important to be able to have. So the way that I like to think about human resources is really just a way, it's a roadmap to be able to find the right team, to develop the right team, to help your team become loyal and long-term team members in your practice. And then they can help you build your practice and help you grow. So it's just processes, it's protocols, it's policies to be able to engage in your team and create productive employees at the same time of protecting your practice against often costly liabilities. So hopefully that.
Yeah. So walk us through. Walk us through a bit. Finding your dream team, if you will. And now, if anyone out there is listening is thinking about this, I mean, your team is who takes you to the finish line in dentistry. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that you have an amazing practice, and they're the ones that allow you to eventually, hopefully, be able to grow production in such a way that you can do whatever you want with the dental practice. Yeah. So talk to me about finding that dream team. Talk to me about how someone goes about this. I mean, in your experience and your firsthand experience, as well as your experience helping clients.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Well, definitely, like I was saying before, when I kind of started off in dentistry, doing the front end and doing management, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to manage people. I knew how to manage a schedule, how to manage appointments, and how to manage patients. But the front end, really, there's a lot more that's involved in it. So initially, when I jumped into management, I didn't know how to manage my team. And so a lot of times I felt like I was in a constant chaos, a state of chaos, where I was on damage control all the time, being able to see how to put out fires. So when that happened, it was just so much frustration that ended up building up that I was just like, okay, we need to stop. We need to reevaluate where we want to take our practice and how we want to get there and who is going to help us get there. Because like you said, your team is basically an extension of you, the business owner, the practice owner, and it's basically you're leveraging yourself. So you want to be able to find people who have that same philosophy, have those same aspirations, and have those skill sets to be able to help build your practice. So when it comes to finding people, finding your dream team, we really like to work one-on-one with the dentist and being able to figure out their roadmap. So we have this very detailed, new hire recruitment consultation that we work with our clients, and we spend that time to figure out, okay, where do you want to take your practice in 5 years? Are there new services that you want to implement or add in your practice? Maybe do you want to switch to a different types of software program? We kind of really dissect and reverse engineer what their end goal is to be able to figure out who they need now to be able to help them reach their goals. So it's I feel like a lot of times what happens is when there is a vacancy in the practice, you just go into this panic mode and you just think, I just need to hire somebody now. So we get in that mindset of being able to just fill this temporary void, but we need to think long term on how that employee is going to really help grow your practice. And I think when you do that mindset switch, then that's when you're able to really understand what you need and what's going to add value to your current team, to your patients, and eventually to reach your goals.
So as far as, going out there and getting those dream employees, I mean, I know this is it's really hard to ask a question on this, because I know most of the answers are going to be, there's going to be somewhat of a personal item for that doctor to be able to figure out who their dream is that meshes the best with their personal, strengths and weaknesses and what they're looking for, and what position needs to be filled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what are some of the, the ways that we can, go out there and find the applicants and filter them and, really come up with the best hiring mechanism to be able to find, to separate the good from the bad, if you will?
Okay. So it's really important to have a good protocol in place, I would say, because like I mentioned, most of the times when that vacancy does happen, then it's panic mode. They just throw up a general job a job posting, and then just hope and pray for that right person to come. And then they find a stack of resumes, they start going through it, and then they just find maybe one or two people from the stack of resumes that are okay, and then they just end up settling. So, and I understand their time pressure, because it's like, that's a lot of pressure on the clinic. It's a lot of pressure on the doctor. It's a lot of pressure on the schedule. There's so much that basically it's like a volcano that's about to erupt. In their mind, it's a volcano that's about to erupt and it's going to explode, and then the practice is going to fail, right? So it's really important to have all of those systems in place. So when there is a vacancy, you know already what you're looking for, because you've taken that time to figure out what your dream team is, and then having a set of interview questions. Because sometimes doctors, they just end up going in, they're so busy, they have so many things on their plate, that when it's time to go for the interview, they just kind of think that they can just ask random questions. But when you have your wish list, then it's easier to kind of figure out what your checklist is, the kind of questions that you need to be able to ask to find those answers, to be able to make sure you're finding that person with the right experience and right philosophies and values as you do. And then also, once you start kind of doing that and narrowing it down, then you can also, have the right questions when it's reference check time, and doing the working interview or a skill set interview, really being able to find out the situational questions that you should be asking to make sure that those people are in line with what you're looking for. So I think it's just having all of those steps laid out ahead of time. So in that way, that's your roadmap, and you can follow those steps to be able to reach your end goal of finding the right person and potentially the next employee of the month for your practice.
Do you feel like the person dictates if they're going to be a all-star person, or if the policies dictate if they're going to be an all-star person?
It's both. It goes hand in hand. Those policies, those job descriptions, the communication that you have with your team, and then also how you're onboarding and integrating this new hire is what's going to set them up for success. Because sometimes what happens is I'll see an office hire this person. She's wonderful. She's great. The first day comes in, they get introduced to the team, and then basically shown, this is your workstation. This is your schedule for the day. Have fun. I'll see you later. And so this person is basically left stranded to either sink or swim. And, chances are in their mind, they're like, I don't know if I want to show up for day 2, because there's already that lack of organization, that lack of communication. They don't know what the doctor's preference is yet. They don't know, maybe the doctor likes to have this kind of instruments set up for that procedure. So it's really taking that time to onboard, to integrate them, to have those policies, those, having a good mentor, perhaps take them under their wing the first few weeks, following up with them on a regular basis, saying like, how did today go? Was there, maybe we could start evaluating to see what the next step would be next week where we could add on to their learning and to their training. And it's a gradual process, and you're not going to find yourself in that same situation where this new hire just quits, right? Because unfortunately in our industry, we have a very, very high turnover rate, and it's because of that. There is no proper onboarding and integration of this new hire, no communications in place, which is, the job descriptions, the HR process, protocols, it's the performance reviews. There needs to be better communication in our offices to be able to create those long-term and loyal team members. Because when you take the time and you explain to them, this is what I like, and this is the reason why, they feel that you're investing in them and in their growth, and you're taking the time out of your day to be able to help them succeed. And that's what's going to make that huge difference in your practice.
I feel like a lot of dental practices just over time become like when you see like in the cartoons and there's a small snowball that comes off the top of a mountain, it just starts rolling down. It's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like a lot of dental practices are like that as far as processes go, especially at the front office. It just becomes we're just doing it how we've always done it. So we're just going to keep rolling down this mountain, and issues just keep building and building and building and building and building and building. People drop off, come in, and guess what? They just jump right on top of the ball, and they keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. And if they never stop it, then it just becomes this big cluster of a sad comedy at the end of the day. Whenever it just crashes into the dentist, is usually who it crashes into. Exactly. So you'd mentioned, the process of finding the person, and then you actually mentioned something like a working interview. What does somebody do in a working interview? I mean, tell me about like what it is to you that can secure someone, not maybe secure someone, but maybe, what you can learn in a couple days of a working interview, and also define what a working interview is for the listeners out there.
So working interview is more of think about it like as a skill testing interview. So you've already interviewed these people, they're giving you these wonderful answers, exactly what you want to hear. But sometimes on day one, you notice, oh, well, they actually don't know how to use this program. They don't know much about insurance. They don't know much about this procedure like they told me. So this is kind of more of a skill testing interview, basically. Sure. So the best thing to do is to have them come in and well, let's take the front row for an example. So have them sit down with either your practice manager or your lead administrator. And then that lead administrator can basically kind of take them through the day, maybe create a mock patient. They can have that person look into their actual ledger, maybe read the treatment plan that the dentist proposed. And then that person who's being interviewed can explain to the manager, can explain to the lead administrator, this is how I would deal with this insurance, or this is how we would deal with their AR, or this is, so in that way you can really understand what their experience level is, their communication level, pretending that that person is dealing with an actual patient, and being able to see if they have that high level of customer service that your practice already demonstrates. And you want to make sure that that next employee, that next hire is going to have that same, level of care that they're going to provide to your patients. So that is one example of just kind of doing more situational questions, discussing different types of scenarios, seeing how they would react to it, see how they would discuss that to the patient, and ultimately making sure that everybody has the same values, philosophies, and goals that your practice has.
And the answer on here maybe it depends, but this is something I'm curious of too. And if this isn't what you guys specialize in, then that's fine too. But whenever you pay someone for a working interview, is that typically paid as an independent contractor, or do you actually have to hire them in and then fire them if they don't work out and pay unemployment potentially?
It is basically like you are hiring somebody, because they are going to be a part of they're on your payroll. So you have to hire them, get that proper paperwork in place. And then ideally, if things work out, then that's great. They're already on your payroll. It's just finalizing the details and things like that on the employment contract. But these working interviews are not done for free. You need to make sure that they also have confidentiality agreements signed, because they are starting to look through your patient's files and your practice information. So it's really important that you're protected in that place as well. So it is technically like hiring an employee, but it's on a contract basis. So in that way, they know that it's no obligation essentially for them to continue working with you. They're not covered under that until a formal offer is actually in place.
Okay. And is that the same in Canada as the US?
Canada, yes, you do have to hire them on and have them sign on. Sometimes what offices do is they have two different types of employment contracts, one that's for permanent employees and one that's for temporary employees. So those are the ones that come in anyways to kind of fill those last minute shifts in your practice. So usually a temporary employment contract is what will cover for those working interviews.
Okay. And so they come through the working interview, you feel like they're a good fit. What do you do after that? I mean, after they're a good fit, do you start doing the training at that point? Do you feel like training programs should just be a part of the culture of the practice? Tell us about that.
Okay, well, definitely the next step should be that the secondary vetting process. So doing the reference checks, and I really, really strongly recommend to do a background check as well. Because if you think about it, for both the front and the back, they are dealing with confidential information. The front end is dealing with cash. You want to make sure that there's no criminal records, as well as those individuals who are dealing with patients who are part of the vulnerable sector, meaning that they're under 18, perhaps they have disabilities, things like that. You want to make sure that those people that you're hiring do not have a criminal history. So it's really important to make sure that you do those reference checks and background checks for every single person before you actually make a formal offer. You can also make a formal offer and then have the employment contract state that their employment is based on that they're cleared for their criminal history, their criminal background checks, and also their references as well. So I'd say even before offering, at least do reference checks and then the background checks as well.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. Really quick announcement for you. And if you're going to be a dental practice owner, you're at some point going to have to get a dental practice loan, whether it's going to be to acquire a dental practice or it's going to be to start a startup dental practice. You're going to have to get a loan. And I'm really proud to say that a company that I've worked with personally dozens of times over the past few years is our first sponsor after 80 episodes of Start Your Dental Practice. And our first sponsor is Bank of America Practice Solutions. So whenever you're going to be getting a new loan, whenever you're going to get a loan for starting your dental practice or acquiring a dental practice, you really want to make sure that you have three things when it comes to that loan. Number one, you want a really great interest rate. Number two, you want to make sure that the company that you're speaking with has a lot of experience and can guide you through the best path to be able to become a practice owner through the loan process. And number three, you want to make sure that the terms associated with that loan are the most advantageous for you. And I'm really happy to say that all three of these things, Bank of America just knocks it out of the park for you. It's really no brainer. If you're going to have to get a loan, which you are going to have to do 100%, you may as well go with a company that has great interest rates, has great experience with the industry, and has the best terms out there in the market today. So if you're currently in the process of shopping loans, 100% give Bank of America Practice Solutions a try. And if you would mention that you came through the SYDP community, it would help out the podcast a lot and also allow us to give back to our very gracious sponsors. Again, this is an advertisement, a paid advertisement. If you go to them, I will have more advertising revenue come to me. So if you enjoy the podcast, I would appreciate you helping out our sponsors. And if you are interested in that loan process, just text the word bank loan, one word, BANKLOAN, to 33444. Again, that's bank loan to 33444, and we will reach out to you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so reference and background checks. Let's assume everything is taken care of and they are a member of the team now. As you stated, this lots and lots of turnover.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep a team engaged, excited, and on your payroll? I mean, and committed, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can continue going along the lines of your new hire. So they've signed the paperwork. They're excited. It's their first day. If you have an office manager, I think that the office manager should be the crucial point of hiring that team member and integrating them into their office. I always like to, for my clients, when it's their new hire's first day, I always like to order lunch for everybody. So in that way, during lunch hour, that new employee, they can be introduced, they can kind of get to know each team member one-on-one. It's a nice little icebreaker. So in that way, on day 2, they kind of feel a little bit more comfortable. They can let their guard down a little bit and feel that everybody is on their team and has their back and wants their success. And so usually what's something that I would definitely recommend is to spend some time, so in that way the team can get to know each other, because also the team is a little bit hesitant. They're like, who's this new person? They're going to be working with me, potentially knee to knee or right beside me. I want to make sure that, that not only do they get along with the patients and myself, but, they have the practice's interests top of mind, just like I do. And then afterwards, I would definitely suggest, it's great when offices already have invested in the time to develop those training manuals, those procedure manuals, those policy manuals, and then sitting down with the employee and going through that and just letting them know what's expected of them. The worst thing is when you do have those policy manuals, sometimes we rely too heavily on it. And what we do is we just throw them on their lap and say, here you go, read this. I'll check in with you at the end of the day to see if you have any questions. And it's the same thing. You're just throwing them in there and feeling like they're, you have more other important things to do on your list instead of them.
Yeah, just sign the first page and get it back to me, and then
exactly.
Everything about the practice of what you're
And that's not how it works. And we're all not learners like that. Like for me, I need to be hands-on. I need to watch you for you to explain it to me. And then I need to work through it. And I'd like to have you sit next to me to let me know, oh, don't touch that button. Make sure to, and here's the reason why. This is what you would do next. That's the kind of training that makes me successful. Not everybody likes to read a book, and it's not going to make them like an expert by day 2.
Sure.
So
let me ask you this. As a person who's worked in a dental practice, I can ask you this, and this is more speaking as, from your experience in the dental industry rather than as an HR, pro.
Right.
Does money influence engagement for team members?
Yes and no. I would say sometimes, okay, so for me, when I was hiring for my own practice, sometimes people who are chasing the money, I really don't trust them, because sometimes what happens is if they get offered another position that's getting $1 an hour more, they're going to leave me for it. Right. So I want to be able to have somebody who obviously, we're going to reward hard work. So you show me that you have initiative, you show me that you want to grow, you show me that you bring value to this practice, and I'm going to reward that. So I think it's the type of mindset, it's the type of, personality traits and things like that should determine if that's the type of person that you want, or somebody who's you can easily lose because somebody is paying $1 or 50 cents more an hour.
Yeah, those are always tough discussions whenever someone says, well, I could get health insurance over there and I don't have it here. Even though I'm getting paid, $200 more a month here, I still want health insurance. So maybe that's reason for me to get over there, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what about from this perspective? It's very popular now to tie bonuses in with potential practice production, or with practice, daily averages, or meeting requirements, or hitting a goal, or things like that. Do you feel like that pushes people towards the finish line? Do you feel like that pushes people, gets everyone in the boat rowing in the right direction, basically?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen it both succeed and not, and kind of maybe almost be a sword in the side, in the flesh a little bit for other practices. So I'd say it definitely needs to be a goal that's attainable, because you can dangle, a carrot in front of somebody, and if it's too high and they jump and jump and jump and never reach it, they're going to stop jumping. So it's the same thing with your practice. It's really making sure that you can show them, like, look, we reached that number a couple months ago. So it's doable for our practice. So if we just, focus on changing this here a little bit, and then we can, maybe add this system or tweak this protocol, we'll be able to reach that. And then just having that good communication, letting everybody know what your goals are, what the practice goals are, and then everybody be a part of creating, or maybe adding some ideas, and seeing what initiatives that could be done to be able to make that practice successful and reach those goals. I think it's just when you involve your team, that's when it's going to make a difference, right? When they're involved in that planning process, because when you just tell them what to do, nobody gets encouraged when they just get told what to do. They need to have the reasons why. They need to see the benefits, for them, for the practice, for the patients, and then really just be involved in that. And that's what makes or breaks it.
So what about as far as having consultants or having teams go to training or all these other things? Because I hear it all the time from clients saying that, yeah, we tried that and the team just didn't like it. And or the team has, I hate to say it in this blunt terms, it feels like the team somewhat has a chip on their shoulder. They're like, well, I know how to do it because I've been doing it for, since, Abraham Lincoln was president. So I obviously know how to do it, So how do you deal with that internally in a practice?
Just kind of dealing with those roadblocks, those people.
Yeah, that personality trait, or that resistance to change, I guess, is the way of saying things.
Mm-hmm. I think it would definitely, starting off, explaining to your team why you're going to a consultant, or why the practice needs to maybe get some more training on a particular area in their practice, and then just showing them the big picture and having them understand the reason why. I think is what will make the light bulb go on team members. Then there are some, like you said, who maybe are going to take a little bit more coaching. So maybe taking that time to sit down with them one-on-one, hearing what their reservations are, and maybe seeing if you could coach them or reason with them, maybe kind of tailor that coaching session to something that would appeal to them, for them to be able to understand the benefits of using this consultant or what have you. And then if things continue, if they're still resistant, and if this is the way that your practice needs to go to grow, then that's when corrective action needs to be taken. That's when you need to, maybe do a verbal warning and be like, this is our new job description. This is what's part of your position. And this is what the changes that need to be made. So in that way, we can all be on the same page. And then again, if that doesn't work, then, it's time for written warnings. And then, that still doesn't work, but it's taking the time to be able to speak with them, to be able to coach them. And then you're able to see if that's the right person for your practice or not, because maybe this is also a way that as you're growing, you're starting to see maybe certain people aren't on the same page as you, because that's what you want. You want your entire team to be working, to be behind you, to be rooting for you, to be, growing this together. But when one person isn't contributing, then you're going to start to notice it's going to be a trickle effect to the rest of the practice and to the rest of the team. They're going to start to see that this person isn't trying as hard. So then they're starting to wonder, like, well, why do I need to then, if this person gets the same rewards as I do and nobody talks to her about it, right? So it's really just setting that precedence, making sure everybody's on the same page, providing the needed tools, the needed resources, the needed coaching, to be able to help encourage that person to be able to go together. And if that doesn't work, then you need to find somebody who does.
Do you think that the culture of self-improvement is important in dental practices?
Yes, 100%. Because I feel like, dentists, they spend a ton of money on going all these continuing education courses to be able to see the different types of software, the different types of, procedures or services that they can offer to be able to help improve their patients. And I think the same thing that should be done with your team. How do we improve customer service? How do we improve marketing? How do we improve our systems? Like, it's always growing. Like, a business is a living person almost. You have to continuously feed it. You have to continuously nourish it. So in that way it can continue to grow. And you need to be doing that the same thing with your team, because that's how you create loyal team members. You need to invest in their personal growth and development. You need to make them feel that, I want to grow this practice and I want you to grow with it. I value you. We spend 80% of our day together. You're a valuable member of this practice, and let's do this together. Like, who doesn't want to hear that, instead of this is the way that we have to do it, whether you like it or not? There's no hugs here. We're not a family. You just work with me. That's it. That's two different types of environments. And if I'm looking at it from my standpoint as an employee, like, I want to be with somebody who actually wants me to be there and not make me feel like I'm just a warm body and they can easily find somebody else.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. So you'd mentioned about reprimanding and, I hate to use the term spanking for like children, but scolding and, sending people to timeout. How do you do that in adult practice? Because sometimes, you can't punch them, at least in this country.
No.
And so no matter how bad you want to, guys.
You heard it here. You cannot punch them.
HR, that should be the title of the episode. HR exec claims you can't punch employees. So tell us what you do. How do you go about that process of, telling people you didn't do a good job, or telling someone that what they did is not, the way things should be done in adult practice?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll come from it from my experience when I did have to do, some corrective action to some team members. I like to
I thought you were going to say whenever you got in trouble is what I thought you were going to say.
Me? Never. So it's something like, one thing out of all of this, if you think that my methodology is not right, one thing, if you could take from this, is please do not reprimand people or put them down in front of other people, because that is something that, it really hurts somebody, right? Like, to be called out in front of your entire team that you did a terrible job, that is going to make that person, that's going to demean them. That's not going to encourage them to come to work the next day. And I bet you when they go home, they're going to start looking for other jobs.
It also doesn't help you in front of the other employees. If you demean that person, you guys, and everyone listening has to understand, feel this in some regard. And if you don't, then maybe you're better at separating the personal and business stuff than I am. But like, you're like shoulder to shoulder with these people literally all the time, like day in, day out. There's blood in your office. It's not typically from you guys, but you guys are a team.
Right.
And if you demean another person, that just lowers the value of the person saying the things in front of other people. Because what happens then everyone starts becoming afraid. Mm-hmm. And once you start becoming afraid, you lose a lot of respect.
Right.
I mean, fear does not denote respect all the time. So anyway,
yes.
sorry.
Amen. You definitely nailed the head on that one. But so definitely I would take them aside and really just kind of highlight the occurrence and just ask, maybe what happened there? Like, was there, and kind of get their feedback and maybe their point of view on that action or the reason why they took that action. And then really just ask, like, taking probing questions to really ask them, what can we do to be able to help set you up for success? Is there some additional training? Maybe we can sit down with you one-on-one. So in that way we could show you why we set up this way, or why we, the procedure is done this way, just really seeing what you could do to make them feel that they are successful, or they can be successful at their job. That is definitely the first initiative that I would take. And then if you start to notice the trend again happening, then, starting maybe with a verbal warning and sitting down with him and saying, okay, well, remember we went through this. This is something this is our process. This is our protocol. So let's make sure this happens next time, okay? And then if things don't work again, then it's written warning. But you are taking that time to explain that to them. And then at the same time, think of this long term. So let's say worst case scenario, things didn't work out, you had to let them go, but this person could claim that you did not give them enough training and that you let them go. There was no reason for them being fired. So they could open up a claim. So, and then all of a sudden they're starting to investigate you and starting to, dive deeper in and investigate the situation. But if you've already taken that time, you've written down, you've showed that you've taught them this, that they've taken the training, then you show them the written warning, then you show them the verbal warning, you are protecting yourself for worst case scenario. If things do ever come back, you have the paperwork to be able to back that. You have coached them several times. You've given them several opportunities to improve. And it was because the employee did not make those changes is the reason why they were fired. So yeah, just keep that in mind as well. Whenever you are speaking to your team members, you do have to do any corrective action. Make sure that you have the paper trail.
Paper trails. Us accountants like paper trails. Paper is our friends.
That's right.
So let's say you've gone through the process of training, you've gone through the process of reprimanding, you've gone through the process of writing them up, and the worst has occurred, and you find out you had a bad hire for your practice. What's next? How do you get rid of somebody?
Okay, well, going back to that, making sure that there's good paper trail. Mm-hmm. And then really, there's a lot of things that you need to evaluate first. Never fire because you're upset. That's the worst thing to do. Anytime in any business or any part of your life, when you react out of emotions, we end up making not so smart decisions. So there's a lot to consider. And this is where it's really important to have a good employment lawyer to contact, because there's a lot of things that come into play. And like you were mentioning, both Canada and in the States, province to province, state to state, county to county, all different legislations, all different regulations and employment standards. So it's really important to make sure to do your research. So for instance, let's say in Canada, common law takes effect after 5 years. And there's a lot of things that you need to make sure that if you are letting somebody go, there is this standard of duty to accommodate. So let's say this person has been with you for 25 plus years, maybe they're a little bit older in their career. You have to think, what's the likelihood of them being able to find another job, right? And then that duty to accommodate sets in. So then that means that your severance pay is a lot larger because of that. So there's so many things that you need to think about before letting somebody go. But first of all, like I said, paper trail, contact an employment lawyer. So in that way, they can make sure to have the right paperwork for you, so that when you do terminate somebody, that you are crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. And another thing that's super, super important, which I find that a lot of offices aren't taking advantage of, is doing an exit survey. So it's basically interviewing. You don't have to personally do an interview with them. Just give them, we have these interview forms where basically the team member can write out maybe if they gave their notice for leaving, the reason why they were leaving. It just provides good feedback to be able to see, okay, maybe I didn't have the right training for them. Maybe we need to tweak this office protocol or this office culture. There's just a good way to be able to get feedback and see what we could do better, because we ask that of our patients all the time. We send them patient feedback, appointment surveys, to be able to see what we can continuously be doing better to make sure that they have a good experience. And we should be doing the same thing when it comes to our team, to be able to see what we could be doing better with the rest of our team, with our practice, with our protocols, to continue growing.
So, another piece that would be important is we have a lot of new practice owners coming in and that are their listeners are going to be potentially acquiring practices. And, a lot of people say whenever you buy a practice, you have the old doctor fire everybody before the practice comes into your ownership. and then the first day you rehire them based off of your interviews prior.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good advice? Is that bad advice? Is that dependent advice, or what is it?
Again, I would say that definitely to contact an employment lawyer to be able to make sure that that's within the employment standards and legislations. But sometimes what I've seen happen before is when, let's say, this new dentist has purchased a practice, they acquired the entire team, but this team, some of them had employment contracts, others didn't. That's a really scary thing, because if, let's say, a couple years down the line, maybe this person isn't the right fit for your practice, but there's no employment contract and they were acquired and assumed from the previous owner, like that, it's way, way, way harder to let somebody go without an employment contract. So I would definitely say it would be a good thing if you do purchase a new practice to have an employment lawyer create a new employee contract. So in that way, it can cover any new hires and any employees that were acquired from the previous practice or owner. Sorry, I should say.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been a really great conversation. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel needs to be let out there to the people that are listening to our podcast?
I would just definitely really stress about how important it is to know where your practice is going, be able to figure out who your dream team is, and be able to have the right onboarding integration, the right, have regular team meetings. I think that's super important. And a lot of offices really don't put a lot of value and time in having these regular team meetings, regular checkups with them. And the same thing, having performance reviews. Like, that is a great way to be able to check in with your team members. You could provide feedback with them to see what areas they can improve in. And then also they can provide feedback, or maybe they have some amazing ideas that could change your entire practice. Like, take that time to be able to sit down with them and have that open forum, that open communication with your team members, so that they can actually help your practice grow. I feel like sometimes the biggest thing that I find when I'm interviewing a candidate and asking them why they're, looking for a new job, 99% of the time, it's because there's no communication in the office. And even I interviewed this one amazing girl today, and I was asking her, like, what's your ideal practice? What does your dream job look like to you? And she just said, I know this sounds silly, but I want to feel comfortable enough to be able to ask my doctor questions. I want to be able to approach him and understand why he wants to schedule this, this appointment for 70 minutes instead of the regular 50 minutes. Like, I just need to know why. So in that way, I feel prepared to be able to explain to the patient if they ask me questions, because right now I can't answer them, and I feel like I'm doing the practice a disservice. I'm doing the patients a disservice because I don't have the answers, and because I don't feel that I can actually go and ask the questions to the clinic, to the doctor. And that to me is really sad, because these people are, like we talked about, they're an extension of you. They are your brand ambassadors for the office. Like, you need to set them up for success so that they can actually bring value to your practice. So yes, so open communication, that's very, very important.
You heard it here first, guys. You got to learn how to speak to people. It's tough. It's tough, believe me, but you got to do it. You got to learn how to do it. So Samantha, thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone has any other questions about your company, what you guys do, how you can help them, where should they go?
Well, they can check out our website, www.streamdental.ca. Find us on Facebook. We're constantly doing Facebook Lives. We're doing different types of videos. We even have people on where we interview them to be able to see how their services can also add value to your practice and other avenues aside from human resources. So please find us on social media and on online as well.
Awesome. Well, Samantha, thank you so much for being on today. Guys, thanks for listening in, and hope you learned a lot today. I know I did. Go out there, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice.